Hello and welcome to this chat I'm looking forward to having with the lovely Liz Nagle and Amy Bird. I'm really excited about this. We have the astrologer, the mystic and the tarot card reader meeting again. So much to talk about. First of all, hopefully we're going to talk about the full moon that we're in at the moment, the energy of which we're in at the moment. And we're going to be talking nodes as well as eclipses as well. So welcome back, Liz and Amy. Lovely to have you here. We do love a good chat. I'm going to, on and off camera. What really inspired this one, although I think we are going to make it a regular thing, but what really inspired this one was Amy's chat that she had with Peter Sanderson. And I will put a link in the description and the video in the end screen if I can. To that, because Amy just touched on so many super interesting points that Liz and I wanted to dive deeper into. So, but that was very much about the nodes. So I think to start off, let's start with the full moon. So Amy, would you like to enlighten us?
Yes, I've been contemplating this moon. Yeah, we've got the Aries moon, full moon is tomorrow. It's at 10:57 British time, English time. And Aries is the sign of I am, and it's sitting opposite the Libran sun. We've currently got the sun in Libra. So the focus very much is kind of relationships at the moment for this kind of like next season. The full moon itself, Aries can tend to bring up a little bit of, agitation. It is the sign that brings up anger. And what I've been noticing is that in the lead up to this full moon, the moon is in Pisces. So right now the moon is in Pisces. And so in a way, yes, Aries can bring up our ire, and make us a little bit, as I said, agitated or irritated or whatever. But Pisces is a very peaceful sign. And it's more about the dreams, and it's almost like there's this feeling of being in kind of a limbo land or no man's land at the moment, kind of like people feeling a little bit out of sorts just in the build up to it. I've noticed, and I've certainly been feeling a little bit like that. So the moon itself is actually not really being aspected by anything. So it's a standalone moon. And Aries is very much about I am, and like recognizing what it is that we need, and kind of fully being who we are, being clear about who we are. The interesting thing about this moon is that we have Uranus, and that's like it feels like the biggest part of the moon in a way. Uranus is forming a square to Venus, and it's also in conjunct Mars, which are the two rulers of this moon. So Mars rules Aries, the moon, and Venus rules Libra, the sun. So the two cosmic lovers are being aspected by Uranus, which is the great awakener, the one that shifts, the one that clears the way. I feel like it's a very clearing energy at the moment, the one that helps us to step backwards and see things from a different perspective, the one that can bring curveballs. And there's been a process of Uranus aspecting Venus, first on around the 2nd of July, when Venus was going forward through Leo, and then Venus went backwards, went retrograde, and so it hit it again, and that was 9th of August. So there was a second passing of this kind of clearing, and then now it's the third and final pass. And it's basically the feeling that I've got is like, what else needs to shift? What else do we need to clear away in order to be more fully ourselves, to be more authentic in our relationships? The Leo Venus doesn't want our light to be dimmed. Leo likes to shine its light brightly, and be creative and show itself and express itself. And so there's been the sense that anything that's been kind of holding us back from that in a way has needed to either change form, which Uranus can do, or pass away. So I have heard of quite a few relationships passing away in recent times. And, you know, and that can just be because, I mean, you know, maybe they're not helping us to be all that we can be, you know, in some way, shape, or form. So I think for the most part, this feels like a moon to kind of shift. I've got this feeling of burning stuff away. You know, the Aries is the initial spark of fire. It's the first of the fire signs. It's that you know, where you kind of light the match and then see what happens, you know. And so what do we need to basically burn away in during this moon, or clear what still needs to be clear? And Aries is a very honest energy. It brings things out into the open. It's not afraid to you know, have conflict if it's necessary, you know, but bring things out that kind of need to be spoken about, and kind of let go of any fear. Whereas the Libran sun can, you know, that part of us, it can be the part of us that wants to be the people pleaser, or is a bit afraid of being alone, or is afraid to rock the boat, because we might not be loved or accepted as a result. Whereas Aries says, no, sometimes you have to rock the boat, and sometimes you have to kind of you know, say things that need to be said, or bring things out into the open. But in an ideal world, do it in a nice Libran, kind and considerate way, where we're all taking each other's feelings into consideration. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell. There's probably more, but that feels like the biggest kind. Oh, the other thing, sorry. The ruler of the moon, Mars, is right next to the south node at the moment, and we'll talk about the nodes in a little bit, but it's right on the Libran south node. So there's a feeling of maybe the past, things coming up from the past, maybe old resentments, maybe things that we haven't expressed that we need to now express, or that come up as our ire or anger could come up, potentially come up, or things that we haven't expressed before could potentially come out into the open as well. But Mars is in Libra, which is quite a gentle sign. So I don't think that fundamentally this is going to be everybody like being really, really angry at each other and going, you know, it's probably going to be more kind than that. So there we go. That's the moon tomorrow.
Brilliant. That was a brilliant summary, Amy. Thank you so much. I was hanging on every word.
Good.
Me too. And I have questions, but Liz, do you have something you want to say before
No, that was all I wanted to say. You go ahead with your
yeah, because there was so much there. I mean, already there's so much juicy stuff to dive into. So one of them, you're talking about the I am, and knowing who we are, which of course is very relevant as well with the messages I've been getting, and embracing all of who we are. But it brings to mind, because I'm a big fan of affirmations, and this is an affirmation that I actually got from the lovely Liz Nagle.
Perfect.
who in turn got it from the lovely Paul Selig. So it's powerful, and it's about I am, because it's just simply, I know who I am, I know what I am, and I know how I serve. See, I go goosebumpy just saying that. I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of the frequency of words and affirmations, and I find 3 is the magic number when I repeat something with that much love and understanding and connection behind it.
What was the first one? I
know who I am.
I know who I am.
And I know what I am. Sorry, Liz.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I know who I am is, I know I'm a divine, infinite being of light. That's who I truly am, in truth. I know what I am. I am that divine, infinite being in this body, incarnate, having this human experience. And I know how I serve is I serve by being my authentic, true self, by allowing that infinite being of light, that divinity to shine through me in every moment, really.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's when you embody that, it's so powerful. And it gives you permission to just be you, authentically you, which is Aries. Yeah. And but the divinity then is the Libran energy of kindness, and it's not solipsism. It's not there's only me and fuck everybody else. It's there is only me, and so why would I not be kind to me? Everybody is me. Everything is me.
Yeah.
There is only me.
Yes.
Nothing else, including her.
And tuppence. You and tuppence.
So why would I not be kind and fair and loving?
Yeah.
To all aspects of me.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the Libra Aries axis, really, is, you know, Aries is about self-love, and people mistake that for selfishness. But what's wrong with being a bit selfish sometimes, you know?
Nothing.
Fundamentally, if you don't love yourself, then what have you got to give anybody else?
Yes, and if you don't express yourself, your truth, you know,
yes, yeah,
then you're not helping anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, like by playing small or pretending to be something you're not, or yeah, absolutely. And actually, the Uranus part of it, that's another aspect of this. Uranus is to thine own self be true. And that is if there's any motto, then I would say that's the one for Uranus. And that's a very big presence in all of the moons in recent times, and the next moon as well. So Uranus feels like, you know, it's giving us a very strong message at the moment of authenticity and being true to ourselves.
Powerful.
Any more questions?
I don't know whether it's so much a question as just putting my penny's worth in as well.
Yeah.
So because with that affirmation, I do just want to share, and I have shared it privately with you guys, was about, because I found myself, I use that affirmation a lot. You know, I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve. But for some reason, I found myself asking, who am I? What am I? How do I serve? I don't know. I didn't have a thought process behind that, but I found myself asking, and I also found myself asking the pagans of Pago, who are the spirits on the site where the tent is. And so it was, I don't think about these things, they just happen. So it's all quite interesting. And it was when I was doing something that wasn't typically me. It was something that I had thought, this isn't me, right?
But was it you?
Exactly, because I'm going back to the energy centers that I refer to, the 8 energy centers, because it wasn't one of my dominant ones, but we are everything. We are the all that is, and it's all within us, but it is to differing degrees, which is why we're so unique in our expression of those qualities from those energy centers. And it was me being my smallest energy center, my least dominant one, but that's still me. And that's still who I am, what I am, and how I serve, but maybe on a smaller scale, maybe to a lesser extent, or what have you. So I was kind of asking, like, why am I doing this? You know, what's going on? And the message I got back was to embrace all of who you are. And I think that's an important message at this time, because I'm noticing that as we're expanding into more of who we are, you know, there's parts of us that we say, oh, that's me, that's what I'm like. We do the self-realization, the self-reflection, which is fantastic, and the self-love and understanding what we want, what we don't want, and all of this. But what I'm getting at is that there is more to us than we have allowed ourselves to be. And I think this is about embracing all of that, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Is that an Aries thing? Is that an Aries quality?
What, the embracing all that we are? I would say so, yes. I mean, because it's basically, if you think about it, it is just I am in the purest form. So I am all of me.
And because
Yeah.
I mean, you know this because you know our personal astrology, but I'm finding this really interesting now because you're talking about a moon in Aries. That's the sun is in Libra, and the nodes at the moment, if I heard correctly from your chat with Peter Sanderson, is the south node is in Libra, and we're moving as a collective at the moment towards Aries.
We are.
Which for me is very comfortable, because you also know that you were the one that enlightened me to the fact that I'm Aries rising, and since that time, which was earlier on this year, I think we can safely say I've embraced my Aries nature and the qualities of Aries in the most beautiful way. It did start off in a very angry way, but since then, well, it did. You know, it's good. I kind of, the pendulum goes this way before it finds balance. And now I'm loving all the positive qualities, or however you want to look at it. It's about seeing how you use them, right? Because Aries is also, I think, very much about being a pioneer as well. And you're talking about relationships. And this is happening a lot. I'm seeing this with the readings. And like you said, there's lots of relationships ending. And what I'm also seeing, though, is lots of relationships shifting how they work.
Yes.
There is this pioneer thing going on. And I mean, my own marriage is a good example, I think. The fact that we don't live together all the time, and it's just enhanced everything and made us, our path so much clearer, and it's just just lightened the load, and it is about walking away from what we thought the way things should be. You have to live with your husband, you have to be like this, you have to do this, and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm seeing around me so many women in particular, because obviously I get more women coming than men, although I do get men as well, but I'm seeing around me people just not wanting to be in committed relationship. Maybe committed is committed in but not being in, like, living in each other's pockets. Not this idea of, there's this need to be independent and free.
Autonomous.
Exactly. It's the sovereignty, isn't it, as well? It's all part of it. We all need to be independent and free. Very much nine of Pentacles. We all need to be the Nine of Pentacles. But you can do that within a relationship, or not, as the case may be. But to me, that's kind of like a pioneer, as in it's a new direction for relationships to go in, if that makes sense.
Yes. The interesting thing, as you were talking there, as I'm going back to Uranus again, because alongside the nodes moving into Libra and Aries, which of course we're talking about here, this Uranus thing has been happening with the relationship, with the relationship planet. And Uranus is very much about, who are we truly? And I think it's running alongside this Aries, really, who are we and what is it we actually want from relationships? Not this cookie cutter, I don't know, white picket fence, everybody living together, doing as you were saying, but actually we are all unique beings and we all have unique ways of being in relationship. And then each person that we're with, the person, our partner, they have their own unique way. And then the two of you make your own unique thing as well. And so it's about figuring out what that means to the two of you and how to make that work, really. And I agree with you, with this Aries energy moving away from the Libra, there can be a tendency to give our power away, especially as women, to give your power away, or to make yourself small, or to not rock the boat because you're afraid that you might not be loved or accepted, or because you're afraid of being alone. But actually, I really feel that to be alone and to actually feel to have this sense of freedom is possible within relationship, but the relationship really needs to be solid, and you need to really communicate, and there needs to be a solid base of love from which to spring out and have that independence and freedom. And it is totally possible. But if it's not possible, and if it is kind of dimming your light or making you feel, lesser, then it's better to be alone, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
I had this conversation yesterday, didn't we, about relationships, because As far as I see it, and I do this in the readings, especially if someone comes with a relationship reading, I'll say to them, the first thing is self-love. The most important thing is that you're living your purpose and you're expressing your fullest quota of divinity that you're able to express at this, level of consciousness or whatever it may be. It's so important that you're on your divine path, and the right partner will be on that path. You don't need to leave that path to find anybody. And if a divine partner isn't on that path, then obviously it's not divine for you to have a relationship. So it's not in the stars or the astrology or whatever we want to say. So I think that's a really important thing. I think the most important thing is to be on your spiritual path, and the right person will be there if they're meant to be. Because fulfilling our spiritual destiny, or however we want to view it, is the most important thing for our own health, happiness, abundance, evolution, etc., isn't it? So
Yes,
yeah.
and of course, relationship can also be a part of that spiritual path. I mean, I definitely find that being in relationship is when I grow the most in some ways, when you have someone that close to you that they're giving you the mirror and you're able to see your shadows more clearly, and it's not comfortable, but actually then you do the inner work. And that's where I really feel that it's important to do the Aries work on self, rather than putting the blame outside of self onto other and say, oh, you're making me feel this way. No, yes, there's something that you're doing that is making me feel this way, but what in me fundamentally is actually being triggered? So it's interesting what you're saying. On the one hand, it's very important, yes, to make sure that we are on our own path, but at the same time, I definitely feel that the relationships that come in, or all kinds of relationship, whether romantic or other, but mostly the romantic, because it's so close, have so much to, it's such good fodder for our spiritual journey, I find. So.
Totally. It's interesting. It's particularly interesting for me, this full moon and the north and south nodes, because mine are the exact opposite. I'm moving, my south node is Aries and my north node is Libra. So I'm coming from the I am and moving to the we are. And so while I'm not in any kind of a romantic relationship at the moment, I do have a friend staying with me, a guy staying in the house at the moment. And so, there's all these compromises having to be made and buttons being pushed, and and it's amazing, because I'm getting to have all of these lessons about being a we, without all the entanglement of the romance or the typical relationship. So I do feel we're kind of like pioneers in relationship, because we're a good match, we're good friends, we're a good pair together, and we get to work through these things, and then we have to kind of take time out sometimes to process our own triggers, but we do that, and then we come back and talk about it, and it's been really, really revealing for me, and full of growth. And yeah, I'm really loving it, and I'm loving the fact that it's doesn't have that extra layer of complication that romance kind of adds to it. But I'm fascinated that I'm on the exact opposite path to the rest of the world.
That's one of my questions, actually. I've actually got it in my notes, to ask Amy, that this is all so humanity, the collective, is kind of being pushed in one direction, and Liz on her personal path is being pushed somewhere. I mean, what's your view astrologically of that? I mean, is it just that she's contrary, or
No, it's just that at this particular moment, I mean, you're going to be, I can't remember what degree your nodes are in exactly, Liz. So, but but soon enough, I mean, yeah, soon enough, or yeah, it depends on when. You're going to have your nodal opposition, which means that, you know, the south node's going to be on the north node and the north node is going to be on the south, literally. And that can sometimes mean just a kind of a going backwards in order to move forwards. It's not that you're contrary to everybody else. You are actually going to be learning the same lessons as everybody else, because this is a collective thing, and we are all learning about this Aries north node. But fundamentally, often what happens when you have your nodal opposition is you get pulled back into your past somehow. Like, so the north node of Aries is going to be activating your south node. So your growth north node is going to come from going back and recognizing where those patterns lie.
Right.
You know? And
okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
The kind of the way I see it is humanity, me included, because there is only me and we're all the one. But so it's finding that balance, because really that's where we're going, by finding the balance between Aries and Libra, finding the balance between I am and we are. And yeah, I mean, so that's where humanity is, and that's where I am, you know. It's just we're coming at it from different angles, but you know, I'm also part of the collective, so I'm also coming from there. But that's interesting about bringing up old things. Yeah, interesting in my life.
Yeah, it's interesting. The nodes themselves are almost like a marriage between the sun and the moon, the masculine and the feminine. And it is basically exactly as you said, it's a kind of a symbolic merging of the two. And so it is really fundamentally about having a balance, taking the good parts of the Libra into the Aries, you know, and how one informs the other, and finding, and interesting that Libra is the sign of balance, but it is in every nodal axis, it is about finding the balance between the two. And that's what every full moon is as well, because the full moon involves the sun on one side, the moon on the other side, but it's not about going too far to Aries or too far to Libra. It's about kind of finding the intersection of both. So
I wanted to just ask you, a friend of mine's first grandchild is about to be born. Like, I think was due yesterday, but it was still waiting. So probably the full moon will help it along. But what an interesting time to be born. No,
what an interesting time to be born. And that, with that Uranus square the nodes, and if that baby's born now, then, or today, it's going to have moon in Pisces actually. So that's such a beautiful moon to have, albeit I'm finding this moon in Pisces a little bit like, like I'm wading through sludge or something. But
yes, I actually had this fuzzy feeling in my ears and my brain. It was like, for about a week, it was like driving me nuts. Just fuzz. I couldn't hear properly. Everything was, you know, and sludge. Yeah.
Good way to put it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, a very interesting chart if that baby's born. I'm just looking at, I've got the Aries full moon thing here, you know, be quite powerful, quite a strong force, I would say, if the baby's born.
Make sure they get the right time.
Yeah. Are they going to be an Aries moon or a Pisces moon? That is the question.
Yes.
Okay, ladies, shall we move on to what we were talking about before? Maybe Amy recapping some of the nodes axes that we've been through in the last, I don't know, couple of decades even, because we can all reflect back, can't we? And I think that's what I was doing when you touched on it in your talk with Peter Sanderson, but I was kind of wanting to go ask you questions.
Yeah, a little bit deeper. Yeah. I mean, I've only got the dates of from 2018 onwards, because it could get a bit, it just felt like quite a process that we've just been through in the past few years in particular. So I think it's quite helpful to kind of see it from that point of view. But basically, go on.
How long, is it always the same length of time?
It's about 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an 18-month. And so it's also about an 19 month cycle, a 18-month year cycle. So the last time that the nodes were in Aries, Libra and Aries was about 19 years ago. Does that make sense?
No, that's where I got confused, because Liz said something yesterday about it being 18 years, and I got confused because so everybody that's born in the same 18 months is going to have the same nodal axis, right?
Yes. Yes. And then everybody born about 19 years apart will have the same nodal axis as well. It's just a cycle. It's taken that long for the nodes to reach Libra and Aries. It's gone through all the other signs,
all the others, and all the other signs the other way.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. So we started basically with the nodes were in, South Node was in Capricorn and North Node was in Cancer from November 2018 until May 2020. And I really recognized at the time I was writing my moon posts and I was contemplating with all the lockdowns going on and everything, how Capricorn is the sign of achievement. You know, it's the being in the outer world, it's being on that hamster wheel, it's kind of like, you know, setting goals for yourself. And whereas Cancer is very much about the home and the family and you know, our inner world. And you know, so there, what happened with lockdown was that basically people were forced off their hamster wheel into the home and had a really good kind of like a change. And there were quite a few people at that time that did, you know, have a real shift in, oh, hang on, I've just been working so hard all this time and everything, but there is another way of, potentially another way of doing this, you know, and spending more time in the home, spending more time with the family, which was good for some and not for others, but that was, you know, a big theme of that time. And then in May 2020, it went into Sagittarius, South Node, and North Node in Gemini. Sagittarius is all about, you know, it is international travel. So that was affected. We weren't able to kind of travel anymore. And so we were forced into our more local vicinity, you know, that being Gemini, which is kind of just, you know, our local neighborhood. And there was also a lot going on about, you know, Sagittarius is very much our beliefs. And there were so many preachers on the pulpit, and people had time on their hand because they were at home and they were researching and finding out what was going on in the world. And everybody had their opinion about what was going on at that time. And then there was that big push, Gemini, to back it up with data, you know, back up your beliefs. What do you have proof of what you're saying? All of that stuff. But then there was also this feeling of people, like so many people in fear and with so many kind of differing beliefs. And it's almost like some people's common sense, Gemini, which is common sense, just deserted them. You know, that was another part of the story. So it was about, you know, like trust, you know, another thing was, you know, just because you think that you know the truth, Sagittarius, doesn't mean that there aren't many other versions of that truth, you know. And I definitely feel very, very strongly that and I said this in the when I talked to Peter, that, you know, the one thing that we all definitely know is true at the moment, and then, is that nobody really knows the truth. And I think that that's where it's interesting, because Pisces is square both of these, you know, Gemini and Sagittarius, and Pisces is about compassion, you know, and it is basically having compassion for other people, and everybody may have their own beliefs, and that's okay, you know. And
Yeah.
to not lord it up over anybody, and I really strongly also believe that there is something much higher than what you or I believe going on above all of this. And that is that we are going through a kind of a grand awakening, aren't we? You know, there's an ascension going on that is much bigger than my belief or your belief. And that's a very I think a very powerful message that's come, and I think that that's still playing out now. where there's so many and I've been thinking about this with regard to the nodes here and now. Libra is like two sides of the fence, you know. There are a lot of divisive subjects out there in the cosmos at the moment that are creating division. I just said the same thing twice, but you know, there is so much divisiveness, but basically I think it's about, you know, there is a common ground, and it's very important not to be divided by our beliefs, but to accept that we're all essentially, we are all one, aren't we, you know. And you know, and just because you have a differing point of view does not mean we have to fall out over it by any stretch of the imagination. Anyway, on to the next one. Was in January 22, Scorpio, it went into Scorpio and Taurus, which is very much the economy. And that's where we really saw a lot going on with the fallout of what happened, with the lockdowns and everything. And there were energy crisis, which is Scorpio. There is also Taurus, a massive emphasis on the economy, on inflation, you know, recession, all of that stuff happening, but also a kind of a need to be more self-sufficient, you know, and maybe kind of let go a bit of the power structures of the, you know, like try not to be in too much debt, for instance, things like that. Taurus is very much about self-reliance, grow your own vegetables, get back to the earth, you know. And
That's right.
Yeah, go
I
on.
was going to say just that the, you know, Taurus is the earth, and there were a lot of food shortages and stuff
Yes,
like that as well, or threatened anyway. There was times of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
fits
very
totally with me because January 22 is when we bought the garden. Well, we bought the land of the garden retreat. We moved in
ah,
February 22, where yeah, exactly, away from the power struggles and living. Well, we don't live off the land, but you know, much more that kind of lifestyle, shall we say?
yeah, perfect timing.
Taurus lifestyle than Scorpio on what you're saying.
Yeah,
That's
and
why I found it so interesting. It's just so true, isn't it? I love astrology. It's so true.
yeah. And the other thing about Taurus is also about simplicity. You know, it's just about a lot of people during this time have gone, okay, well, what actually is most important to me? If I have to cut back, I don't need that. I don't need that subscription to Sky, you know, or whatever it is. You know, what are the things that really truly mean? And let's like pare it back and go, okay, I actually don't need that. And that's a valuable thing to happen. I know it's not nice that we don't, you know, that there's been financial struggles and gas bills going up and all of these kind of things. But on another level, it's there are a lot of things that people spend their money on that's just that they don't really need to. It's become a very big throwaway society. And maybe this has been a good learning in actually, okay, so get that bag zipper fixed instead of buying a new bag, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know where that came from, that example.
You were looking over in the corner. Is there a broken zip on the back?
Yeah.
Somebody listening to this that needed to hear that.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Does that
yeah.
bring us into July 23?
July 23, exactly. And that's when the nodes went in from you know, the Taurus, Scorpio and Taurus into Libra and Aries. And that is where it does feel like it just gets very personal. It's the sign of I am and relationship. It's much more personal now. And but one of the things that I definitely feel, we've been talking a lot about, you know, the Libra Aries business, and with Libra, there can be that fear of being alone. There can be the people pleasing or the accommodating or leaving things unsaid because we're trying to keep the peace, or turning a blind eye to issues because, you know, and losing ourselves. And as I said, also blaming other for our, you know, the stuff that we really need to look at in ourselves. And then Aries is about finding ourselves and being clear about who we are and what we are, and getting to know ourselves and what we actually need, and turning the love towards ourselves. and you know, and not being afraid of a little of bringing things out and saying things, and you know, bringing it out into the open, even if it does bring a little bit of but basically the courage to be ourselves. But there's also this feeling of the Libra, the extremes. Libra is a sign of extremes. It seeks balance, but it can tip one way or the other. And I think that there is also that to consider in this, that our Aries fire could be ignited by one, what is not fair in the world. Aries, okay, things aren't fair, says Libra. We need to create more balance. Well, Aries says, well, what can we do about it then? Aries is the action planet, but it's also the planet that goes, you know, there is the potential within the two, and this is where we maybe need to find the balance of that divisiveness. There's a lot of divisiveness around, and it's not a good thing, and it needs to, and I think basically we need to find some balance there, and as I was saying, that the compassion and kindness and consideration to each other, because Peter said in that when we spoke before, that the Russell Brown stuff, and again, we didn't really want to go into it, but basically that subject matter broke a whole load of relationships up, and it's quite interesting how, you know, that
I find that, yeah, that's
fascinating. I mean, it must have been the straw that broke the camel's back,
but something had to happen, because the relationship had to break up because of the astrology, because you have to be your authentic self. So something happened
externally
to make it happen, you know, internally, and change your world. And so I find that fascinating, you know, although, yeah, it's useful for seeing patterns and what's happening, but you know, it's not going in the flow. Don't let me go off on that one. But what else was I going to say? I was going to say something, can't remember. Carry on. I can't remember.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I think that basically that's it in a nutshell, because yeah, I just feel that there is something in this kind of there is also this sense of the two sides of the fence, and Libra can end up wanting to just stay on the fence and not make a decision either way, but it can also mean that there are two opposing extremes going on, and then that can lead to Aries conflict. So that's another area of this. But as you said, you know, that conflict needed to happen in order for things to change and to, you know,
And
so
clear,
it's all
energy clear. And I remember now what I was going to say, because it goes back to not throwing blame around, you know, not blaming, and taking 100% responsibility for our own place in it, our own part in it, and taking 100% responsibility. People always say, no, I want, you know, okay, it's half my fault. It takes two to tango. You know, it's 50-50. Well, it isn't. It isn't. There's 200%. Each person has, or however many 100%, everybody has to take 100% responsibility for their own feelings, for their own responses, for their own feelings of being loved and secure and happy. You know, that's my responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility. And that's the healthy balance in Libra and Aries, rather than sitting on the fence going, oh, I don't want to rock the boat. You can sit on the fence and be a sovereign whole being. There's always a shadow side and a light side to everything, even sitting on the fence.
yes. I actually feel very, very strongly about what you've just said, and I completely agree that it is about taking 100% responsibility for ourselves. And that's all we can do. We cannot control what another person does. All we can do is control and work on what it brings up in us and why, and where, what little hurt part of ourselves, what little, you know, the inner child, what's being triggered by that person or whatever's going on. And that's all we can really do, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the work. And I have got a very strong dose of that in recent times, and it's been such a gift to really truly consciously know that. Does that make sense? To go right.
totally.
And I love it. So yeah, so now it's just it's changed everything, I think, for me, you know. Yeah,
It's great, these moments of enlightenment, of some awareness. Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, for me, that moment, or that life-changing moment, is when I finally, after 2 years of Liz saying it every day, embodied the concept of there is only me. And I understand why I have to keep saying it to people 100 times now. Because it does, you know, we hear it. I mean, all of these words, one with nature and stuff like that, you hear all these phrases, and until you've actually experienced it and actually felt at one with all that is, you know, it sounds like cliches. They sound like, you know, whatever. But when you realize them and you actually embody them, because for me, understanding that there is only me, and like Liz started off by saying, not in a selfish way, and like, you guys don't matter. It's like you guys are holding a mirror up to me all the time, you know, and the more you love yourself, the more people are going to hold up a mirror, you know, to reflect that love back. The more you trust yourself, you're going to be surrounded by people that are going to trust you, you know, and, you know, everything just improves because the mirrors are reflecting back that inner work that Amy's been talking about. You know, when you do that inner work, then you're still the creator, and there is only you to create your reality, 100% responsibility, like you just said. But understanding that is life-changing, because if you love all of who you are, then you're going to love all the people holding up the mirrors, whether they're holding up a mirror of love or a mirror to trigger you. It's the same. You know, they're holding the mirror up. Love them, love the mirror holders, I want to say. And that's when life changes, isn't it? Completely.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was going through a bit of a tough time a while back, and I was really in my stuff, you know, I was in my kind of pattern, and a good friend of mine, she said to me, "It's a gift, Amy." And I was like, and so standing there, I remember standing there going, "This is a gift, this is a gift." And I was like, but I couldn't feel it. And then 2 days later, when I was out of my stuff, I was like, oh, what a gift that was. But yeah, it was the mirror and the gift, and it was totally, you know, a beautiful thing. But it is very hard to see it when you're in the depths of things, you know.
It is. You can't see it then, and you're not meant to see it then, and that's okay. You know, that it's not like we're not meant to go through these, because there are experiences that we need. You know, this life. So life brings us what we need, not always what we want.
Yes.
You know, and it's to remember that, you know, oh, well, okay, it's a gift I didn't know I needed. You know, I certainly didn't want it, but now that I have it, I'll figure out a way to be grateful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the most profound gifts are the hardest ones, you know,
Yeah.
often, you know, that, yeah, it's not easy, but that is where the soul growth lies.
definitely.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that you're talking like this now, because I'm feeling like I have to mention, see, last Friday we had the autumn equinox picnic in the garden, and Liz was doing a demonstration of how she does her thing, which is inspired from the Byron Katie work, but she takes it kind of to another level. And she was working with a friend of ours, so she had people actually watching, which I think is really powerful, because I myself have experienced massive internal self-realizations and shifts from observing Liz doing her thing with a friend of mine. So it's like the Byron Katie work itself. You know, you can have an aha moment by watching somebody else. So we had people in the tent watching Liz doing her thing, and it was funny because the girl that was kind of being done, we must find other words for all of this, but the girl that was being done, she literally said, "Oh, Liz, through her amazing use of conversation, you know, got her to see the gift in the trigger." And so she actually said, you know, "Oh, it's a gift." And then, of course, that theme carried on, and she went deeper and deeper and expanded upon it. And I mean, it was, you know, quite a while, the process. I mean, it was a relaxed, you know, situation. But then at the end, you know, the girl's going, "It's another bloody gift, isn't it?" It's another bloody gift. And she's like, "I've got it. I got the gift." She was just going all the way through it until in the end she was just like laden with it. And yeah, it's beautiful to watch that process. But I wanted to put that out there because obviously I'm going to be putting Amy's and Liz's contact details in the description. But that is, in my opinion, what Liz does best, is to help people find the gift in their triggers.
Perfect.
So, yeah, it is perfect, isn't it? We're coming up for 1 hour now, girlies. Do you want to carry on and do the eclipses? Should we do them another time? What do you think?
I'm happy to do either way. I can do a very quick. I could do a very quick of when they are, and then we can come back in another time just before them and do eclipses, right?
Yeah, that is I've got one quick question though, if I can ask.
Yes.
Because I found it so fascinating about these nodes since 2018 that you've just spoken about.
Yes.
I'm hoping anyone listening has grasped kind of how that's a collective energy. But you did say, when you were talking about Sagittarius to Gemini, you did mention as one of the qualities of Gemini being neighborhood.
Yes.
I didn't know that about Geminis. Geminis like,
yes.
they serve their neighborhoods.
Yeah, the Gemini kind of energy. Sagittarius is more of that kind of real expansive, the other world. If you think about when you travel, then you get a sense of other people's, you know, what the outer world and other people's beliefs and everything. Whereas Gemini is more kind of your local vicinity in a way. So that kind of like going and hanging out with your neighbor over there, or saying hello to the person you get your paper.
Well, it's the twins, isn't it? So you're self-sufficient within your oneness.
Yes.
I like that. Well, because also I'm sure that was a time that whether we're physically doing it or just thinking it, we are going into our local communities, aren't we? We're looking at being self-sufficient within our local communities. And during that time, of course, that's exactly for me personally, it's what I did. Because I used to travel a lot. I spent my whole 20s traveling, and I just don't feel the need to at the moment. And I'm seeing lots of people traveling. But this is making me realize, because of course Sagittarius to Gemini is my natal nodal axis.
Yes.
And so that really made me realize, that explains why I don't feel like traveling so much. And that's why I have instinctively created this community around the garden retreat. It kind of, that's a part of that nodal axis. Okay,
absolutely.
So that's going in the right direction, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm a Gemini, and one of my best friends is Sagittarius, and she's the one who kind of drags me around the world. You know? She's always the one. I'll come with you. You know, let's go. Yeah. She's always planning her next holiday.
Yeah.
The Geminis are not typical travelers then.
No, it's not that they're not. It's just that Sagittarius energy is particular. When we're talking about the nodes, it brings it more into a kind of that kind of context. But yeah, I would say more nodal. But Sagittarians, yeah, person with a Sagittarius moon or a rising. I mean, yeah, they're going to want to be traveling the world a little bit more, but not, but Gemini has a genuine curiosity about the world as well. So
Yes, but we can be at home wherever, you know,
yes,
because we're self-sufficient. We can be home, you know, even traveling, we can be at home.
yes.
We can feel at home.
I'd love to hear from anyone watching this. Please comment below if any of these nodal, you know, axes or whatever it is, what's it that have been going on since 2018 resonate with you and what's been going on in your life, because I'd love to see that collective, you know, energy coming through.
I was just going to say, because a lot of people don't know what time they were born or whatever, and so don't really get an accurate natal chart, but your nodes are much more forgiving in that way. You just need to know the month and the year. Well, maybe the date also, probably, yes. But, you know, it's, and it's very, very revealing. I mean, if you never got, sorry, Amy, but if you never got an astrology chart done, a natal chart done, the nodes would tell you an awful lot, give you an awful lot of information about who you were and who you're growing into, you know.
We talked about that in our last video, didn't we? The nodes and the importance of them. I will put a link in the description to that as well in the video in the end screen. So if people haven't seen that, they can go back and check the importance of their nodes in their natal charts. And as Liz says, you don't need your time of birth to get your nodes. So that's fantastic. Thank you, Liz, for that. Okay, so on to the eclipses.
Yes, I'm just going to do very, very, very quickly, because we first have the Libra new moon, which is a solar eclipse, and it's an annular solar eclipse, which is similar to a total eclipse, but further away from the Earth. So a Libra new moon is 14th of October, and there's a lot of powerful energy swirling around that one. But basically, an eclipse brings, you know, eclipse season brings a sense of new beginnings. One chapter ending and another one starting, and this one will be linked to the 14th of October 2004. So if we think back to what was going on in 2004 around that time, then there could be, it won't be that the same thing will be happening again by any means, but there could be a similar theme in some way. And obviously Libra new moon, we'll talk about this again. I think we probably would, it would be good to just do the eclipses maybe next time. But Libra is the sign of relationship, and a new moon is a new beginning. You know, something ending, something passing away in the dark of the moon, and something being brought forward. But an eclipse, it goes further. It has a longer reach, whereas a normal new moon would be, oh, for the next month. This will be for the next 6 months until the next set of eclipses. So this is a much more far-reaching moon. And then the one afterwards is the second eclipse is the Taurus full moon. And that is the 28th of October. And so that is a lunar eclipse, and it is only partial, but it is still an eclipse, and it completes the eclipse season basically. But there is very much an emphasis on relationships for this time, with this Aries North Node being activated. The nodes are being activated by the eclipses, and I'll go into that more next time, why the nodes are so important to the eclipses. But they are, that's the whole point of the eclipse, is astrologically, is that it's the nodes that are being activated by the moons. So that's why it's good to talk about this Libra Aries business, because that's the flavor of these eclipses basically. That's it, I think, in a nutshell. But yeah, it'll be, we can go into them in more detail, those two moons, the next time we speak, because that will be quite fascinating. So
yes, please. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, I think it sounds relevant as well, because the card that came up for me before connecting with you ladies was the Ace of Wands.
ooh.
And that sounds very much like it's relevant. We've got the
Aries, isn't it?
Aries.
The I am, the new beginning of new moon and everything. And
I always think of it like a matchstick, you know, the Ace of Wands is like a matchstick. Just
like the Aries full moon.
Yes,
Perfect.
exactly. Perfect.
It is all perfect, and connecting with you ladies is also perfect. It's one of my greatest joys in life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there anything you want to say before I turn the recording off?
Nope.
So guys, check out the description below because there's lots of links and things like that. And it looks like we're going to be seeing you again shortly with some more in-depth stuff from Amy on the eclipses. So for now, I'm going to love you all and say goodbye. Bye for now.